Hello, dear friends at Cardiac Radio. Here we are. It is Cardiac Radio live for you, and we are here beginning again the series of Health and Spirituality. Health and Spirituality is the program that started Cardiac Radio 2011 every Saturday, and we've turned 8 years at Cardiac Radio this year, and we've expanded to so many programs. We are 24 hours. We have more than 60 hosts, more than 4,000 podcasts, and the audience in more than 120 countries. And we're happy to join you here again. And today we have a very special program. It's our dear friend, Dr. Stephen Post. He comes back, and it's actually the first time that we're going to do this interview also with the video, okay? And you're going to be able to see, not only hear him, and get to know of his advancements. He is a scientist, he's a faculty at the Stony Brook University. He's also the founder of the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, where they are doing groundbreaking research and projects to really empower humanity. And we have talked to him years ago about a beautiful project on um, empowering youth and religious tolerance, right? And from that project, many things came along. He's the president of the institute. He's the best-selling author of works that are included in the Best American Spiritual Writing. And he has written several books, and I can tell you a million things, but mostly about the book of today, God and Love on Route 80, the hidden history of human connectedness. Are you ready, friends? We are ready to welcome our dear Stephen Post right here with us. Thank you, Dr. Post, for joining us again at Red Radio. How are you?
I'm fine, Vanessa. It's so nice to hear your voice again, to see you, and to be in touch with all the great spiritists who I have grown to admire and love.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see how much has been happening. The last time we were with you were promoting this beautiful contest on religious tolerance. You want to recap for those who may have missed it or to see what happened afterwards as well?
Well, yes, sure. I mean, very briefly. So, in the summer of 2016, we were able to fill a big portion of the United Nations headquarters with young people from around the globe, a number of whom were magnificent spiritists, and written essays about how they could imagine back against religious hatred and turning it into love. And they're beautiful essays from thousands of people all over the globe. And they performed these in all different kinds of styles at the UN, and it was United Nations Youth Day, and it was piped out to 80 million young people. It had a great impact. I got lots and lots of responses, and we're still doing the essay contests for high school juniors and seniors, and we have a special website for it, www.loveallmeansall.org. Loveallmeansall.org, and we're going to start up a new competition with prizes, first place prizes, which bring a certain award, a cash award or a check award. We're going to begin another one, I think, in January. That will be our fourth.
Wow. So there will be another one.
Oh yes, yeah. We plan to keep this going, and that website it gives young people. It's limited to people who are in entering the 11th or the 12th grades, and we describe it as a college scholarship program. But there are really nice awards, and the essays will be posted on the loveallmeansall.org website, and we'll probably have a collected edition of these essays in a year or two, possibly with a really great press like Random House. So it's an opportunity for young spiritists to write meaningfully and to actually have a little financial benefit in the bargain.
And the question is, Dr. Post, we cannot, it's not a trivial thing. What you're doing is something very unique in the world nowadays. And why? What are the reasons why you have decided to take this route and promote this awareness on religious scholars, especially at the youth level?
Yeah, it's a little hard for me to hear you on that one. But boy, it's such an important topic. And the last part of the new book, God and Love on Route 80, which has a foreword by Larry Dossey and a nice endorsement from Deepak Chopra, and is very much consistent with the Spiritist tradition. The last chapter is about these youth essays, and so if you go there, you can find out all about them and submit an essay. It's just several pages, and a lot of people submitted them, so it is carefully reviewed, and it's not simple to win, but it's doable, and spiritists have won in the past, and they will win in the future.
Great, wonderful. And I see here when I open pages 243, and it's showing me pictures of the youth at that event that you went, in which Bia Lopez participated as well. We know that she is a year from graduating.
She's at Stony Brook. We actually had lunch a couple of years ago, uh, and she's doing applied mathematics. And this is a great university for mathematics. You know, it's one of the top three or four in the country, and she's doing brilliantly. She's a great mind, a
And
great gal.
and she continues to be the main host of Cardiac Radio 14. So,
Hmm.
what's the age range of the contest this year?
Well, we're not doing age ranges because that got a little difficult, just logistically. So we're just saying anybody who is about to enter their junior year of high school or their senior year of high school or is a junior or a senior, they can apply and submit. So we will be re-announcing, but it'll be the same material that's on the www.loveallmeansall.org website now. We're not changing it. It's about living by the golden rule, and the topic is something that people really like to respond to. So it's a good thing for all the spiritist kids who are thinking about becoming great writers, and it's a good prestige piece, and it's something to talk about at your college interviews.
What is the cutoff age?
Well, no cutoff age. It's just high school juniors and seniors, and so
Just that.
that's it. Yeah, if that's where you are, you're welcome to apply.
Okay, that's wonderful. And then after that, you started writing the book. Uh,
Yeah.
so what happened?
Well, actually, Vanessa, I way back in about 2000 when I founded the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, which is unlimitedloveinstitute.org on the website. I started sending out an electronic newsletter called God and Love on Route 80. And it was about this idea of the one mind, that one mind connects us all, that we have premonitions and intuitions and moments of synchronicity where just everything comes together in a perfect way that's so beautifully set up by a loving God and the universe. And so I started writing these episodes that I'd experienced over the course of my life. And then I stopped after 2 or 3 years, but people liked the God and Love on Route 80 episodes, and they responded a great deal. But then I came to Stony Brook and I started all these big programs in the medical school. And now, about 4 years ago, I decided I really want to write the most meaningful book of my life because this one is really deep and it's not just psychology, it's not just spiritual thinking, but it's about experience, about a journey on Route 80, which goes from the George Washington Bridge all the way to San Francisco, that I had in all the incredible episodes of unbelievable synchronicity that I still have because I followed a dream when I was a boy, and that's really the theme of the book is sometimes adolescents we don't we don't understand that their spirituality can be pretty meaningful to them. And I had this recurring dream when I was 15, and that actually set my whole life on course. Otherwise, I'd have probably been a lawyer or a stockbroker. And I went out on Route 80. It's a long, beautiful story, but that's why I am who I am today because I followed a dream.
So that's really interesting because how do the people who are in your life, especially at university, how do they react to it? How do they react to the book?
Oh, yeah, it's a little hard to hear again, but so I wrote the book because I think that most people, for example, take an everyday member of the Spiritist movement. If you ask them, have you ever had a moment when just in maybe an answer to a prayer and a feeling of some desperation, but somehow or another, just the perfect person at the perfect time came into your life out of the blue, and it was just so perfect, and it's so much in response to premonition or prayer that it seemed set up by this loving universal mind, and you couldn't explain it away by just statistics and probability. And so you think of it maybe as God winking at you or God whispering. And the idea in the book is we should notice these moments and not be moving along so fast from point A to point B that we miss them because they really express how cherished, totally cherished, each and every one of us is by this loving, infinite being. And I think Karnak would definitely have agreed with this view.
Yeah,
And and I view the Spiritists as an incredibly spiritual, loving organization. But the thing is, it's not about human love because human love it's sometimes it's very like myopic or narrow, sometimes it's unwise, it comes and goes, but it's really about the spiritual form of love that can almost invade our consciousness sometimes, and lo and behold we look around and we sense the almost infinite value of every human being around us because they are all uh, within the image of God, and they all have God within them. So it's about that deep, profound spiritual sense of a divine love. And yeah, so my people around. I've been in medical schools for 30 years, Chicago, Ann Arbor, Case Western, in Cleveland for 20 years, Stony Brook now. What I find is that for people who really don't believe that our lives can be enchanted and guided, that we can be so loved in such a profound way, they kind of they don't get angry, but they don't have much to do with this book. But on the other hand, an awful lot of people just come by and they've read it and they'll say, I had an experience just 6 months ago or 2 years ago, or my mother called me because I was really imperiled and I wasn't sure if I was going to get out of a difficult spot. And somehow she knew 2,000 miles away in her dream that I was in trouble. And she woke up and she called me. And so, all those kinds of experiences that people have about this mystery of human connectedness, for people who are open to it, it's great. But the thing is that, historically, I mean, Plotinus and Plato and modern physicists, including Einstein, a lot of people have accepted this view. So not everybody's a materialist, but if you run into somebody who's really a materialist and they think our entire minds and lives are defined by cells and tissue and organs and so forth, and they see mind as completely derived just from brain, but not as independent. In the beginning was the mind. It's hard for them to get around on it, but most spiritual people are very receptive.
Yeah, very receptive. And at the same time, I would say many people,
Can't quite hear. Can't quite hear. Sorry.
can you hear me?
Yeah, but just be a little slow, and maybe I think I'm okay. This is my system.
Oh, is, is, can you hear clearly now?
That's better.
Yeah.
Just be loud. Yeah.
Now,
Not so great.
no?
I think that's better. I think that's a little better. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. There are some technical things I don't know what it is. But uh, when nowadays we're talking about the critical aspects of humanity, we know about suicide rates, especially in youth, they are escalating. We're talking about the increase in depression, anxiety, and the question is when you're teaching in your book about following a dream, how do
Yeah.
you see that help
Well,
people who are in those critical states of mind?
yeah. So, so speak a little. It's a little tough to hear still, but I think you asked about the dream and the state of mind and what happened to get this going, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So, when I was a boy, I was about 13. I went up to New Hampshire to a boarding school, and I loved to read spiritual classics. I loved to read Emerson's essay on the oversoul, this idea that somehow our minds are all mystically connected, uh, and we're more unified in one than we like to sometimes acknowledge. So when I was 15, I had a recurring dream. I wasn't a big dreamer. I didn't believe in angels. I was not really an unusual kid, although uh, I was more prayerful than most, I would say. And early in the morning, just as I was getting up, I was kind of not fully awake, but not fully asleep. I had this dream that was a bit unusual. And what I saw was a thick gray mist, kind of a silvery gray mist. And I was walking on a road to the west. I didn't know where to, but it was to the west. And then I saw to my left the face of a young man with stringy blonde hair, and he was leaning over a ledge looking like he was about to jump. So then the mist evaporated, and the whole dream was blue. It was the face of a blue angel. And in a very soft and loving tone, she said, "If you save him, you too shall live." And then it ended. And I would have thought the dream was just the kind of hocus pocus of an adolescent's mind, but it recurred 5 times over the course of about a year. So I began to think that maybe it's not just me creating this, but it could be that somehow this divine mind is trying to break through into my consciousness, and there's something I should learn from this. And so that was the dream. And I had a chance. My sacred studies teacher, Rod Wells, was an Episcopal priest. He took me to Yale Divinity School, where he'd been in school training for ministry. And I actually gave a class on the dream to about 15 students in Masters of Divinity study. And they asked me about it and how did it affect my life. I said, well, I'm in New Hampshire and everybody from St. Paul's schools goes to, East Coast universities, but I applied to Reed College in Portland, Oregon because of this sense of the West And also I said, most of my friends, everybody reads Emerson's beautiful essay about the oversoul, the one mind which we all participate in. But I said, I think I'm the only person who really believes it. So that was a great experience. And then comes the when I'm 17, and maybe we should pause there, but that's basically the dream that set me up for my remarkable beginning for heading west on Route 80.
I see. So now I hope you hear well this time. We are having some technical issues I cannot fix now. So I'm hoping I can answer this question and it will be well. For many people who are experiencing uh, depression, anxiety, it's escalating nowadays. How do you see that you're teaching people about paying attention to synchronicity, to this
Yeah.
connection? Can you help them in some way?
Well, synchronicity, it's an idea that was first originally defined by a spiritual psychologist named Carl Jung, Jung, and a lot of people have heard of him. But synchronicity means that somehow things come together in such an unusual way that you feel that it's caused by God in your life. And it can be many different things. But in my instance, when I was 17, I had a job set up anyway in the Bronx, and I was going to tutor kids. But my parents thought it was too dangerous, and we had a falling out, a bit of an argument for several days. And ultimately, my mom said, "Well, I'm not going to cover you for for college, for Swarthmore, where I was headed, if you don't give up on this idea because it's going to worry us too much." So eventually, I said, "All right, and then what should I do?" So my dad ran a department store in New York, and he knew a lot of manufacturers. So he said, "Well, I can get you a job in Bill DeBono's lampshade factory." And believe it or not, Vanessa,
Um,
I spent 2 weeks working in the lampshade factory cutting cardboard. And I, after 2 weeks, took that secondhand gray Mercedes 190, which I'd been driving to work, out to West Hampton Beach. And about 11 at night, with some of my friends, I decided I was going to follow the dream to the West. I had a copy of Siddhartha in my pocket. I had my classical guitar. I had $50. And I had the push because there was a lot of tension at home. So it was kind of a push and a pull. And I just drove west. I drove through Manhattan. I drove over the George Washington Bridge. And I'd never been west of that bridge, but there were two signs. One said 95 south, and there's no south in the dream. And the other said Route 80 west, Route 80 west. So I took 80 west. About 5 in the morning, I'm in the middle of Pennsylvania, and cars back in those days had generators. When the generators broke, the car just stopped cold. The lights went out, the engines went out, everything. I was thinking just before that happened that I was going to do a U turn over the Midway and go home, and I would have my reputation intact and patch things up. But lo and behold, just as that was in my mind, the generator broke. And all I could do was get the car over to the right shoulder of the highway. I stepped out, I looked around. It was just wheat fields and cornfields as far as the eye could see. There were no phone booths, nothing. This was out about Lewisburg, again in the middle of Pennsylvania. So I did the only thing that a adolescent kid could do. I took a piece of paper out of the glove compartment and I wrote a note. And it read as follows. It's actually in the book. To the Pennsylvania State Police. Please return this car to Henry A.V. Post, 44 Davison Lane East, West Islip, New York, 516-669-5655, from his son, who no longer works in the lampshade factory. It was not I wouldn't recommend that everybody do this, but this is what I did. It's a confession, I guess. So I had my guitar, a couple of books. I put my thumb out, and a big white truck came along. A guy named Gary, who dressed country and western, flung the door open, and he said, "Where are you headed?" And I said, "I'm going west." And he said, "I can get you to Chicago," and he did. I spent a couple of nights in Chicago and Grant Park playing Villalobos and Granados and Ponce. Earned a little more money on the benches there, and then I fell in with a group of hippies. They were headed to San Francisco. I said, "That's where I'm headed. I'm going west." And we got to Nebraska, and when we were just outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, one of the young ladies said to me, "You really should call your mom." So we pulled over, and it's been like five or 6 days since I left. I called collect. My mom said, "Oh, thank God you're alive. We can call off the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons are detectives." And I said, "Mom, why did you call the Pinkertons? Didn't you get my note?" That was an obnoxious thing to say. But I said, "You really should have let me tutor in the Bronx, and um, and the car broke down. Did you get it back?" They'd gotten it back. It was in the shop. And I said, "Look, maybe if you'd been driving it, you'd have gotten hurt. But for me, it just was a matter of getting over to the side of the road." And that summer I spent with my cousin George Lamont in the Mission District of San Francisco. I was doing Buddhist chanting at the Nam Myoho Renge temple. I was playing music in restaurants, making lots of money, and I was happy to be there for the rest of my life. But I got a very bad draft number, and I didn't want to go fight in Vietnam. So I called the people at Reed College, which I turned down. I said, "Do you have a spot for me?" And they said, "Yeah." So this is where the synchronicity really comes in. There are 12 episodes of remarkable synchronicity that really changed my life, each one of them. So it's 7 in the morning. I'm at the corner of Market Street and Chenery Street, where my cousin's apartment was. And I leave George behind. George Lamont was his name, and some of my friends from the temple. And I take the Market Street bus to Golden Gate Park. I walk across Golden Gate Park, and I walk onto the Golden Gate Bridge. And now it's silvery gray. I could not see more than about 2 feet in front of my nose. I got to the middle of the bridge. I'm on the left walkway, and there's a railing, and then there's a ledge on the other side. And I heard some shuffling noise. I looked at the middle of the bridge to my left, and I saw just roughly the face of a young man with long, stringy blonde hair. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, annoyed. He was quite agitated, and I said, "I truly hope you are not planning to jump." And he shot back at me, "What's it to you?" And then he started quoting Macbeth, "Life is empty nothingness," shouting it over the San Francisco Bay. And I said, I actually, in a calm voice, I said, I agree. I'm a young person too, and I'm looking for meaning, and sometimes it's kind of a desperate feeling because we don't feel much but emptiness. And I said, when you do a really good job with Macbeth, and it sounds more real when you're out there on a ledge about to jump than it does when we used to do it back at St. Paul's School in Memorial Hall. So we struck up a conversation, and I told him about my dream. And I said, "Look, this is the strangest idea, but listen to me because I think it means something." I said, 2 years ago, 3,000 miles away in New Hampshire, I had a dream. And I explained the dream to him. And then I said, I had this argument with my folks, and somehow or another I wound up driving west in Dad's old Mercedes 190, which had seen better days. And I wrote this note to the Pennsylvania State Police, and somehow, everything worked out perfectly. And here I am, and I'm almost 100% sure that you're the person I encountered in my dream. And he was amazed by this, so we talked about it for a while. And then I said, "Look," his name was Harry. I said, "If you walk over the railing, come over to the walkway next to me, I'm going to give you something that will change your life." And I pulled out from my backpack something called, It's called a Gohon zone. There's actually a picture of it in the book. And it's a scroll, it's a Japanese scroll, and it gives you good luck. You know, Buddhists are really into good luck. And so I said, if you come across, I'm going to give this to you and it'll change your life. So believe it or not, he'd calmed down enough. He walked over the railing and he stood by me, and I explained to him in great detail the symbols about universal mind, about our connectedness, about mystery and depth and eternal soul. I explained this to him from the Cajon zone, and I said, look, Harry, you can have this, but you've got to promise me something. You've got to walk south down the bridge. I gave him some money, and I wrote a note. I said, give this to my cousin George. To George Lamont, 4 Chenry Street. This is Harry. He needs a shower. Please take him down to the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo temple. Let him sleep on your floor. Introduce him to Gus, who was my old mentor there, and try to help him get his life together. And then we waved goodbye. And I went north on the bridge. But as I went north, I felt somehow or another that the dream was a lot more meaningful and a lot more real than I could ever have imagined. And I couldn't explain it because, again, it was 2 years before and it was 3,000 miles away. And so it was like the dream was beyond time and beyond place and space. And of course, I kind of figured at that point that if there is a divine mind, an infinite mind, it also is beyond time and place. It's infinite and it's original. And so I was incredibly elated because I felt somehow that I had had this gift of synchronicity, so that God could show me that reality, that side of life that I've always found mysterious, but now I'd experienced it. And I got down to the end of the bridge, stuck my thumb out. It was always trucks, Vanessa. This green truck came by, small truck, farmer's truck. A guy flung the door open. He said, where are you going? I said, north. I'm going to Oregon. He said, well, we can get you up most of the way. My name's Dwayne Dill, Dill, just like in dill pickle. And this here's my wife, Dorothy. And she said, hi, boy. And I got in there and they got me most of the way up to Oregon. And that was episode 1 of Synchronicity.
Yeah. So when I hear your understanding of life, it goes hand in hand with the question and answer 919 of the Spirit Book by Kardec, when he was asking how we could progress in our lives rapidly and avoid mistakes, and the answer of the communicated mind were self knowledge.
So the voice is fading in and out. It's kind of staccato, so I can't quite.
Yeah. So self knowledge, when I read the book, it's telling people refine your life, study your life, and see that there is a greater reason for you to be you and being here,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah. 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 I mean, I think it was that dream that I had at St. Paul's as a kid that set my life in the direction that it went. And all the things I've done with, I mean, I actually went into the sciences, but I left and I went to the divinity school of the University of Chicago to study with people like Mircea Eliade and Joseph Campbell, and to really try to understand psychology and religion and spirituality and adolescence and all these experiences that people have. And and that really shaped my life. And eventually, of course, I reconnected with medicine and spirituality and health and all these kinds of things. But it was all set in motion. People would ask me. I mean, it's amazing. I I took a break from the University of Michigan med school. I was there for a couple of years after Chicago, and I went to Fordham University, the Marymount campus in Terrytown, New York, and I taught philosophy of spirituality. Um, and my office mate there, a fellow named Gabe Gomez, was a great scholar of the world religions, and he asked me how I got interested in this and why I gave up my scientific work at Cornell, at UPenn, to be doing this teaching. And I said, well, I had a dream when I was 15. I had an encounter at the Golden Gate Bridge. I had many other events in Oregon and elsewhere, and I had this dream, and I told him about the Blue Angel dream. And Gabe Gomez was his name. He was actually from Bangladesh, but his family, years and centuries earlier, had gotten converted to Christianity. So he was actually Roman Catholic. He said, you've got to go to the Union Church in Peconico Hills, which is a little town just next to Terrytown, across from the Tappan Zee Bridge, and you've got to look at the Chagall window. So I went there, and there's this big Chagall window called the Good Samaritan. It's world famous. Everybody should go online and look at it. Chagall, Chagall, Good Samaritan window. And it's a big blue angel, and it's got symbols from all the religions of the world. And he's talking about a third age when everyone will come together centered on divine love. And he actually thought blue was the color of love. So I started getting really interested in Chagall, and I read a book he wrote called My Life. And it turns out that when he was 17, that was how old I was when I was working at Bill DeBono's factory. His dad, they lived in a Russian city. His dad was an Hasidic Jew, and the family had a business. They pickled herring, okay? And Chagall's dad wanted him to work in the factory. But he didn't want to work in the factory, so after a few weeks, he left. He ran away to St. Petersburg. He lived on the streets. He sold sketches for money. And then a few months later, he's in an alleyway trying to get some sleep. He doesn't have any place to live, and he's on this old mattress. There's a worker, big, huge worker, sweaty and a little bit odoriferous, if you will, who's next to him on the mattress, and it's late, late at night, even early in the morning, and Chagall kind of has this vision, and it's of a. He says the alley filled with beautiful blue, and then I saw the fluttering angel wings, a white angel, and then the angel lifted up and it left the blue behind. Now, you can read it. The book is called My Life by Marc Chagall. And it's the only thing I quote in God and Love and Route 80. I mean, God and Love and Route 80 is my experiences of discovering this power. But that quote is in there. And the next day, Chagall painted his first beautiful blue painting, and it's called The Apparition. And it's of, a blue background and an angel. And the rest of his life, even when he died, he was painting a blue angel. If you go to the United Nations, you see his blue UN windows. And so I felt like I had in synchronicity, that's another episode of synchronicity. Somehow, here I could have been any place in America teaching. But I wind up living in Terrytown. I have an office mate, Gabe Gomez, who says you've got to go to this particular Union Church in Peconico Hills. And I discovered that there was someone else on this earth who, as a young man, had had a similar experience to me. It was actually very comforting. So that was another episode of synchronicity. I don't think it was just chance. I think there was a way in which God was trying to kind of get through to me and allow me to retain my confidence that our lives can be guided in beautiful and mysterious ways, and we should be sensitive. We need to be aware of it and notice it, and it really helps us because otherwise it's so easy to get caught up in these negative
Yeah.
downward vortexes of bitterness and hatred. But if you can just stay in touch with this journey, everyone has a journey, then you're going to be better off.
You said well. For those who are just curious about it, it's chapter 11 when there's a picture of God's angel images, and you can read it in chapter 11, which also talks about. little bit later on,
Yeah.
and that it went down. And in the previous chapter, you talk about the golden rule, and you're big on this. The Institute of Unlimited Love's mission
Yes.
and the golden rule. Would you say the boy on the
Yeah.
road?
Well, Chagall. So what happened was I went. I spent 20 years in Cleveland, Ohio. We raised our kids, my wife and I, in a town called Shaker Heights, which is a kind of inner ring suburb. And then in 2008, I got recruited to come out to Stony Brook University on the North Shore of Long Island. And I thought, I guess so. I wasn't certain about it, but anyway, we came, and 6 years later, I'd been invited to go back to Peconico Hills, Vanessa, and give a lecture on the spirituality of Chagall because I became I began to write a little bit about Chagall and people recognized that. And I just really, really connected with his idea that blue is the color of love and all that. So I gave this talk. And then that night in the rain, I drove, over the Throgs Neck Bridge down east toward Stony Brook. I got into the house. I went online just because I checked my email. I'm kind of always checking my email like everybody else, even late at night sometimes. And I had an email from a board member of the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love. Her name is Durray Ahmad, and she's a feminist spiritual thinker from Lahore, Pakistan. And the email said, which is in the book, the whole email is in the book, although I don't give her a name because I don't want her to get in any trouble. Because it could be dangerous. Who knows?
Yeah.
But your website has been completely destroyed, and I went online, and so it said Team DZ ISIS, and the whole thing was the ISIS flag. This was just the summer after we first heard about beheadings and all that kind of thing. So we were one of the first websites that Team DZ ISIS took down. You can Google that and you'll see the history of it. I talked to an FBI guy about it briefly. Wasn't anything I could do. I wasn't worried about it. But somehow our message of universal love and spirituality was troubling. Um, it was troubling for that group. You still there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So to make a long story short, we had an essay contest. Now we get back, Vanessa, to the essay contest. I talked with my board of trustees, and we decided we would ask young people from all around the world to write personal essays about how they pushed back against pressure to hate others who just didn't share their beliefs. And we got beautiful essays. We had a great group of panelists who judged them. And that's where the spiritists come in because, the spiritists, there were some great spiritists, and I think you helped them. You encouraged this through your Kardak radio, which I'm always grateful to you for. And you came and you even gave a contribution of $1,000 to the event. And I was so busy, I forgot to acknowledge that publicly, and I've always been apologetic about it. But you were great, and it was a beautiful thing. And then it got piped out to 80 million young people around the world. And so that's synchronicity because this wasn't planned. It wasn't something that I would have even thought up. But, for some reason, it all just perfectly worked out. And when I look back on it, connect the dots, it's just so uncanny. It's just so perfect that I feel that really there was God's cherishing love and infinite mind bringing me together with the right people in the right way. And suddenly there we are, and we got a great event at the United Nations.
Yeah. So, for the boy that started that route and is now inspiring other ones, what comes next?
Hey, by the way, I hear you perfectly now, Vanessa. Whatever you did,
Yeah.
don't change it. Okay.
Go figure, huh? Go
Yeah.
figure, you see.
Well, I spent I mean, I love the Institute because we have all kinds of scientific projects. I mean, there are really 7 topics. One is why do we feel good when we do good, when we help others?
Yeah.
Why do we have that helper's high? Why do we typically feel a kind of purpose and meaning in life? What's going on there? Why does it make us healthier and happier generally? And that was the first book, why good things happen to good people, how to live a healthier, happier, longer life through the simple act of giving. And that was a big success. And then in my day job at medical schools, I teach compassionate care. I teach about how love heals and um, how we need medical people and nurses, doctors, social workers who
Okay.
really can connect compassionately with patients. So we study that. We study how to raise a kind child. How do you really raise a child who is kind and has a sense of a shared humanity? How do we do that? How do we teach people to find uh, careers and callings in life that are basically love made visible, that really are the things that God wants them to be doing, and what is that process? And then what about this spiritual experience of God's love, and how many people had it? We did a national survey in the U.S. 5,000 randomly selected adults, 80% of people answered yes. Have you experienced God's love? And then the question, did you experience it just personally in some more mystical experience, or did you experience it through others? And about two-thirds of people said, I experienced God's love through others. Just the perfect things happened in a way that was so divinely guided, and oftentimes because I was struggling with something. And so it just was great. And then we studied we have a section in the institute, ultimate reality and unlimited love. Sir John Templeton, who funded the institute, when he was dying in 2008, and he was on his deathbed in Lyford Key in Nassau in the Bahamas, and his son Jack Templeton, a physician, a pediatric trauma surgeon at CHOP in Philadelphia, calls me on my cell phone. He says, Dad, I was very close to Sir John. Dad wants you to write a book. And he's not going to be able to live long enough to write it himself, but he wants you to write it on his behalf. And I said, Jack, okay, I'll give it a try. What's the title? Anything for Sir John, because I loved Sir John. And Jack said, is unlimited love ultimate reality? Question mark. And that's like the sixth area of the book. So that book I did with Templeton Press, and it goes into quantum physics and the idea that somehow this infinite, loving, intelligent mind sets up the universe, the thermodynamic constants, the mathematical principles, and even is the reality, the energy underlying everything that exists. And so I wrote that book, and Jack and Pina Templeton, Jack's wife, wrote a foreword. And then the seventh question is, how can all religions come together, remaining independent and unique, but also recognizing that their common interest and their common origin lies in a God of unlimited love and infinite mind. So that's what I do. I've been able to stay on the path, and now we have a couple of great research projects going on. And I love teaching medical students. I don't teach them metaphysics, because this is a secular environment, but the people who have spiritual interests show up, and we talk about these things pretty deeply. And I've just continued on. I just got invited to be on the board of trustees of the World Parliament of Religions, and I'm constantly giving talks now. I gave a talk at the UN just 2 days ago on God and love on Route 80, and just filled a big, big room that actually was the room that the Baha'i own. And it went very well. And I've given talks in San Francisco and Vancouver. And everywhere I go, Vanessa, this is why the book is so meaningful to me. Where every place I go, I find people who say, I was always scared to talk about these things that have happened in my life that have been so amazing. And they're not just uncaused. There's something deeper in the universe that made them happen, and I really feel that way. And so it gives them an opportunity to talk about this, and then they realize how much we are each infinitely loved and cherished by this divine
Wow.
presence. And that's what I'm happy about. I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life talking about God and love on Route 80.
Oh my. And I'll tell you something that maybe you don't know. I knew you were going to give a talk on the 3rd of October at the UN, and that day is Kardec's birthday.
Oh, it really? Oh, okay. So that's that. I would say that So Vanessa, you could say, all right, that's just like probability, random. Like there's some way in this whole history of the human species that Stephen Post is going to be giving a talk on God and love and Route 80 on synchronicity at the UN on October 3rd, and it just happens, of course, it's Karnak's birthday. But when I look at something like that, I don't want to overstate it, but to me, it just it's a hint, it's a wink that there is this kind of connectivity, and it's between you and me. We've always had, I think, a kind of
Yeah.
spiritual connection, and you're very deep and you're very intuitive, and so. And Karnak is no longer with us on what you'd call the earth plane, but spiritually he's with us.
Oh yeah, he wants to do something with you because when you reconnected about the book, I've been meaning to write you back and set up a date and everything was happening. I'm like, and then I heard this voice saying, you know, do it on the first Saturday of October as a celebration to Kardec's birthday. Because after all, we're Kardec Radio. So
Oh, that's great. I
we're like,
love it.
okay. And then I read your email about the talk at the UN on his birthday. I said, Dr. Post has something with Kardec.
Yeah. Well, you gave me his great book, which I still keep and have read through, and I fundamentally agree with so much of what he says, and I just wish that people could realize that their minds are not just derived from tissue,
Yeah.
from material. I mean, the human being is not. I mean, there was a really very secular materialist philosopher in England named Bertrand Russell, and he said when someone asked him, "What about human dignity?"
Yeah.
and he said, "We don't have dignity. We are just glorified pond scum." I'm quoting, just the junk on top of an old pond. So when you don't feel or see or recognize that we have a spirit, an eternal spiritual quality. When we miss that, we miss everything, and then we can't explain why. Like when I was at Reed and I was on that terrible motorcycle ride late at night, screaming through the slush, and I really thought I was dead. And this crazy guy, it had hijacked me, and finally he dropped me off back on campus, and I went across to my dorm, across the ravine. I went over the bridge. I walked into the common room, and there was a payphone on the wall, which I never answered, but my mother had the number. And so I just was walking by it, and I felt I was really blown away. I was weaving back and forth because I was actually lost my balance on the bike, and it was my mother. It was 2 in the morning. It was 11 at night in Oregon, and I picked up the phone and I said, "Hello." And she said, "Stevie, I was sleeping and I had this incredible sense of fear and I was sweating and I thought you were dead." And I told Mom all about this unbelievable motorcycle ride and how frightened I was that I was crying. I really thought I was dead. This was some completely drugged up guy from Los Angeles who drove at 180 miles an hour. And I was crazy to get on the back of that thing, but it was a brand new Harley Davidson shovelhead motorcycle, and it was the fastest motorcycle of the time. So, like a jerk, I didn't make good decisions all the time, obviously, but we talked about this, and my mom was a bit of a mystic, and she she and I talked about this idea of one mind. Larry Dossey wrote the foreword to the book, which is beautiful. He wrote a book called One Mind, which I think spiritists would agree with,
Yeah.
and Deepak Chopra wrote a really nice comment about a blurb. So and my mother and I kind of shared that, and later on, some years later, she actually she was an artist. She was a very good abstract expressionist artist on Eastern Long Island, and she did a painting called The Blue Angel Dream. So, and that's in the book. So,
Wow. It's
and
amazing.
there's and by the way, one of the endorsements for the book is from Julie Norman, who
Mhm.
was the wife. Remarried because they eventually divorced, but she was the wife of Rod Wells, my sacred studies teacher at St. Paul's. And the quote she says is, I remember the days of the dream, and I wondered if Stephen was going to be a colossal failure or an unusual success.
There you go. We got you there. So, I see this book as great encouragement, Dr. Post, to people to do this inner journey in their lives and put the apparent fragments together and see how beautiful a beautiful quilt we have inside of us, and it's all guided by superior forces. We can say this here at Cardiac Radio. We have
Yeah,
no doubt about it. And I think we commend you for putting this together because it's not trivial, number one. And two, it takes courage also for somebody who is such a renowned researcher as yourself to really step into this territory of the not yet proved by science, but partaking into the great minds that are, forerunners of humanity, and pushing humanity to that
right,
inevitable conclusion that
right.
God is here, and we everything
Yeah,
that happens, there is a reason for it all.
yeah. And for Karnak, for spiritists all over the world, I would just say that there will come a time, I truly believe this, when the few will become the many.
Yeah,
I think there's going to come a time, Vanessa. I truly have faith in this when we're going to be able to understand much more deeply this one mind in which we all participate. And how else do you explain, like, the amazing creativity of a Hindu Indian mathematician like Ramanujan, the mind that knew infinity, who had no mathematical background, but while he was praying to his gods, he would write formulas in the dirt when he was just 16 or 17. You go to Trinity College at Cambridge University, and right there in the middle of the library are the notebooks of Ramanujan, his two notebooks of formulas, which he would see what he'd written down in the dirt and he'd put it down in a book. They're the whole basis of quantum physics in the modern world. So how can we say that
yeah,
we are so isolated? We have a non-local dimension, and we are inherently spiritual, and we're not just material beings, and our dignity comes, like the Hindus say, namaste, I honor the divine in you, you honor the divine in me. That's what I think Kardec would be fine with that.
oh yeah,
And we need to live all ethics. I mean, I teach ethics. To me, all ethics has to begin with human dignity,
yeah,
and human dignity begins when we begin to realize that we have this unbelievable gift of a mind spirit
yeah.
that's part of something much larger than we could ever imagine.
I agree with you. And Dr. Post, recently at the end of August, um, a movie about Kardec just came up on Netflix,
Oh,
and
really?
watch it. And I would recommend that you watch it because the audio is also they did the audio in English, and it's very well done. And we know the directors who put it together. I think you'll be delighted, and we would really look forward to your feedback on it because I see so much of Kardec in you, and what you're saying, Kardec has been bringing about, like bringing awareness that there's much more to life than the eyes can actually see.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely look at it. I may look at it this weekend. I probably will tomorrow.
All right.
And and I'm just so grateful because Kardec was one of the true visionaries, and he was way ahead of his time. But his ideas. I mean, if you look at things like unity and so forth, they're all. He was very influential on a lot of people in a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
and so I have much respect for him.
So, Dr. Post, we really look forward to having you back here now that we can see
Okay.
you and hear you with our
Okay.
remote studio here. And would you like to share one final comment with the viewers at Cardiac Radio?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to give all your viewers my favorite quote, and this is really from the heart. It's from Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the wife of Franklin Roosevelt, the president during the Second World War and so forth. And here it is, and this is for all spiritists. Um, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams.
Um,
The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Believe in the beauty of your dreams. Stay on the spiritual path. Things are going to come your way. You will be blessed. And there will be so much joy and love and synchronicity in your life. Just stay on that path and follow your dream.
wow. You said it all. And we once again would like to thank you for being in touch with us at Cardiac Radio, for writing this book and being brilliantly courageous and um, it's brilliant the way you put it all together. And I think the book God and Love on Route 80 can be a great inspiration for many people around the world to understand themselves, to validate themselves, and to keep on dreaming and going after that dream. Of course,
Yeah,
dream with
and in
God.
any spiritist communities around Greater New York, pro bono, if you want someone to come give a talk about something
Yeah.
interesting for you, just be in touch with Vanessa, and she'll be in touch with me.
And, and I'll give a challenge to the listeners now. Uh, If you want a copy of this book, Dr. Post has shared a few with us at Cardiac Radio. We can send it to you. All you need to do, if you're watching this program and listening to it, is write an email to Cardiac Radio, putting your name and your address, and we'll ship it to you.
Amen.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Post. We look forward to the next one.
There will be a next one. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Be well. Take care. Thanks.
You.
Bye-bye.
So, dear listeners, here we are. You saw it. Dr. Post followed his dream. And when he talked about his own life, it wasn't easy. Do you think it's going to be easy for you? Why should it be easy? And we're not saying it should be hard either, but it takes effort. As Andre Lewis says in the book Evolution into Worlds, it's about effort and repetition. And God created us this way. Don't fight your nature. It has to be this way. So just accept it. As Tara Brach says, it's this radical acceptance, and we would say radical acceptance of ourselves as well. So today, the message for us is keep on being a co creator, huh? Shall we? And find your niche of work and embrace it and give 100% of yourself and observe the synchronicity. It's not by chance. Kardec talks about it in the Spirit's book. Everything, for everything, there is a reason. And it's on us to just embrace that God is on the behind the scenes of it all. So, dear friends, we hope you have enjoyed our program today. Thank you for everyone who has been with us. And if you want a copy of this book, Dr. Post kindly has sent it to us, and we want to ship it to you. Just send an email with your address, and we'll ship it to you wherever you are in the world. After all, Kardec Radio is here to nourish our souls. And until next Saturday, watch out because more is to come here at Kardec Radio on Saturdays, Health and Spirituality. I'm Vanessa Anseloni. Thank you very much.